Biden administration is not following the National Environmental Protection Act, which requires that anytime the federal government or a federal agency takes any major action that will impact our environment, that they have to do a national environmental impact study.
All right, so the situation at the border is getting worse by the day, and joining us now with more on that crisis is Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich, who's been leading a lawsuit against the Biden administration over environmental concerns. Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much for coming on with us. We appreciate your time. Good to see you.
You're Rob. Good, Rob. Thank you for having me.
Sure. So the state of Arizona is suing the administration in U.S. District Court right now over the administration's asylum policy and for stopping construction on the border wall. So what happens if the court actually does rule in your favor?
Well, we have several pieces of litigation going on. And as you noted, this last lawsuit basically alleges that the Biden administration violated NEPA by stopping border wall construction and by rescinding the Remain in Mexico policy. So we are literally asking the federal court to force the Biden administration to continue to build the wall until they have an environmental impact study, and that they make sure that the Remain in Mexico policy stays in effect until they can study the consequences that is having on the environment here in Arizona and in other states.
All right, so the left is kind of ridiculing the lawsuit. They think it's a total joke. It's definitely unique, but you're claiming basically that the administration is violating, you said NEPA, so the National Environmental Policy Act, basically that with thousands of migrants literally coming across the border, that means additional pollution. It's either totally genius or it's going to get dismissed. So explain a little more about how that angle is going to work. I know that typically environmental impact studies are about 600 pages and they generally take like 4 years to complete.
Right. And we know, just, my philosophy on this, Rob, is what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So, throughout the 70s, 80s, 90s, the left used these types of lawsuits to stop development of highways, to development of housing projects, expansion of airports, a whole myriad of things. They destroyed the logging industry in a lot of states by using these types of lawsuits. And so my thought is that, wait a minute, there is an environmental impact happening here in Arizona and other places. It's not only as a result of increased population, which the left for years has said that that's an impact that must be studied before government undertakes a significant action. Right. But just even the common sense look at it will tell you that when you have hundreds of thousands of people coming across our border, leaving 6 to 8 pounds of trash per person, that is having a devastating impact on wildlife habitats, game trails, the environment itself. And so we know, for example, there's been about 170,000 people that crossed in March. Well, if you multiply that times 6 or 8 pounds of trash per person, that's literally more than 1 million pounds of trash. And so if we're talking right now, the estimates are that there will be 2 million people crossing the border this year. That is like the entire state of Nebraska crossing the southern border in just 1 year. And so that obviously has an impact on the environment. And so I say shame on the environmentalists, because they are hypocrites, because if they did care about the environment, they would worry about all these people trampling across the desert, the trash that's being left being a fire hazard, the impact that has on wildlife and game and, the habitat and game trails. And so this is having an impact on the environment. So when the federal government says we're going to rescind the Remain in Mexico policy, or we're going to stop building the wall, that has an impact, and it's not right that the Biden administration can do that.
Yeah, I know you sent a letter to the governor expressing all that and actually laying out some of that information and the details there. You've also suggested that Arizona declare a state of emergency and activate the National Guard to the border to provide assistance there. The situation in your state doesn't get as much attention as it does perhaps in Texas. What's the situation like on the southern border in Arizona right now?
It's terrible. It's overwhelming. And, there are a lot of politicians, Rob, that talk about this issue, and sometimes they're slow to act and sometimes they don't act at all. But the reality is that this is a national security issue, so we should all care about this border. But as Arizonans, I worry when I hear that there has been a 233% increase in fentanyl coming across the border last month. That should shock all of us, but especially us as Arizonans. When you see these migrant camps and how people are being treated and kids being thrown over the wall, this is America. That's not what we can tolerate. So I have asked, I keep urging the governor, declare a state of emergency, deploy the National Guard, And if he's worried about the Biden administration paying for it or not, I said, send them a bill and I will sue them and make them pay the cost.
You think, has the governor responded? Do you think the governor would do something like that?
Well, look, I'm sure he's doing a poll right now to make his determination, but we sometimes joke in Arizona that when Governor Abbott does something a few weeks later, we'll see Arizona do the same thing. So if I would make it a prediction, I think the situation is so untenable, we have to deploy the National Guard.
Okay, quick question. Republicans on 3 House committees have requested a meeting with the Vice President, Kamala Harris, over what they're calling a catastrophe at the southern border. It affects all 50 states, not just our 4 border states. Time and again, Republicans have begged the president and Kamala Harris to visit the border. How surprised are you that here we are 2 months into this crisis, beyond that now, and neither of them have yet to visit the border?
Well, Rob, I sent a letter to Vice President Harris. We're both first generation Americans, product of immigration.
Right.
She served as an AG while part of my term as AG. She's talked about the fact that we need to fight human trafficking and go after the drug traffickers. So I've been very disappointed that I invited her to come here, come to our office, come to the border, and we received no response. I've also sent a letter to Secretary Becerra, who also serves as an AG, who I know. We've received no response. And, ultimately, if this were a wildfire in California, I guarantee you they would have been there on the ground and doing a photo op and talking about it and trying to do something. And it's just very demoralizing because the Biden administration ignoring this problem is not going to make it go away. It is going to get worse and worse and worse. And it is a disaster now, but it is going to be a tragedy for this entire country if we don't act immediately.
It's a good point. Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich, thanks so much for being with us. Best of luck with the case. Keep us posted on the progress of that case. Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.